we discussed how we can actually create workflows using 86 workflow, that is a rule-based workflow. So we saw some examples, 1-step, 2-step approval process, okay, and how to fill these decision tables and everything. Okay, so let's look at before going into the other use cases in workflow, like email or whatever, some scenarios. So generally when you get a fresh MDG system, right? So we need to do some configuration from our side. Okay. From workflow point of view also, there are certain 2 steps that we need to perform, which is a one-time activity. Okay. In every system, in dev, SIT, UAT, and production. So in every system, we have to do this activity. Okay. So those steps are: go to MDG IMG, in central governance, general settings, process modeling, workflows. Okay, here. The first one is activate event type linkage. Okay, so this one, so basically what happens is whenever you submit a CR, okay, so there will be CR create event will get triggered. At the same time, when you approve or activate, so there are 2-3 events are there, so that we need to configure here. Okay. Sometimes what happens when you get a system, so those events will be already there, or else sometimes we need to maintain. Okay. So for that one, please remember this one under the workflow, the first node, activate event type linkage. Okay. Here, click on this position. So object category should be business object. So that is a BO, business object, BO. And object type is, remember this one, bus 2250. So this is the, in SAP, so we call it as a business object. And this particular business object for MDG, SAP provided this business object. This is at the MDG level, not an individual object. This is at the MDG level. SAP provided this particular business object, bus 2250. Okay. So when you enter this one, you can see there are a couple of entries: activated, created, and rollback. Okay. And you also see these with respect to activate these 3, and with respect to rollback this. Okay. So basically just ensure that you have all the 6 entries. Okay. With the same thing. So here we are not talking about MM or BP or something. This is a generic business object that SAP provided at MDG framework level. Okay. Here you see there is something called creator. That means whenever you create a change request, when you click on the submit button, this particular event get triggered. This is the starting point for your workflow. That's why I said earlier, your workflow always gets triggered when you click on the submit button. So requester first, he has to click the submit button. Okay, so then this particular event will get triggered. From here, your workflow will get kick-started. Okay, and after that, there is something called activated. Activated means, you remember we use that process pattern 5 or 6. When you use the process pattern 5 or 6, so it will initiate the activation process. So for that one, this event should be there. So when this particular event is there, when you call the process pattern 5 or 6, that time this event will get triggered, and the logic associated with the particular event will get initiated.
So actually, one clarification here. So each step type, we have to, activate.
No, not all the steps, only 3. That is create, activate, and roll back.
Got it.
In between, you have approval steps, and all those steps, we don't need to do anything.
Okay.
And this is across all your objects. These 6 plus 1, 7 entries should be there in your system.
There are other business object also available, right? 4101, but 2250, it's related to specific
This is very specific to MDG. SAP provided exclusively this particular business object for MDG. All the objects. Here, activate means it can be material activate, BP activate, customer activate, or custom object activate, anything.
Okay, got it.
Event type linkage main specifically for what purpose?
Okay, so when you click on submit, but see, what I'm trying to say, when you, if at all your workflow in MDG, the workflow should, if at all those workflows should work as expected. So this is a first step, prerequisite we need to check in the system. When you get a fresh MDG system, we need to configure, you need to ensure these entries are there in the system. Then only whether it is 40 workflow or 86 workflow or whatever the workflow, the workflows will work. Otherwise, when you click on submit button also, there won't be any action. So you can find this in this particular under process modeling, workflow, activate event type linkage. Okay, so here you can find those entries. Click on position button. Business object category is BO, nothing but business object. And then object type is bus 2250. Bus 2250 is exclusively SAP provided for MDG. Okay, so when you click on this, it will show you these 6 events. You need to just ensure these events are there. If these events are not there, you need to maintain the entries. Exactly, wherever you see this checkbox is ticked here. So you need to also do the same thing. But how do I know these entries I need to maintain? Either you can refer any existing MDG system, or else there will be a guide. Okay, so if you go to Google, let's say MDG material configuration guide. So you'll find these configuration guides for material master BP for all the objects. So you can actually open this. Okay. So here you will have a step over here. Configure workflow task. Okay. In the workflow configuration workflow task, they clearly mention under general settings, process modeling, workflow, activate event type linkage. You need to mention for business of bus 2250, one is created, one is activated, and one is rollback. So other are not required basically. So created is important, activate is important, and rollback is important. This ACS, DE, you can actually ignore this one. But in every system, I see these entries. But as per the configuration guide, they say only create, activate, and rollback is enough.
So once we set up these steps for all the objects like
This is for all
material
the
BP,
objects. This is for all the
it
objects.
will applicable. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, this is for all the
Thank
objects.
you, Akshay.
So you can find over here those steps. So this particular thing, it talks about the same whatever I'm explaining. So this is a one-time activity that you have to do when you get a fresh MDG system. Okay. So after that, this is a step 1 and there is step 2. So you can see under this one, we have something called configure workflow tasks. Okay. So if you go to this configuration node.
Another question actually.
Yeah.
When we do the system refresh, usually in standard workflow, the event linkage deactivated. Sometimes, not all the time actually. So since it's a one-time activation, when we set up that MDG, do you think, based on your experience, do we expect to reactivate or
Not required. Even I see in many projects they do some system refresh after a certain period, right? So, so whenever there is a system refresh, we usually don't do this activity again. So it's just only one-time activity.
Got it. Thank you.
Fine. So, but in any case, let's say, for example, when you submitted a workflow, but you don't see it is not yet started or there's some issue, then this is one of the check that you can come back and check whether this event linkage is there or not.
Got it.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
So the next one is configure workflow tasks. So once you go to this particular configuration, okay, here there is something called, you can see, application framework, CAMDG-AF application framework. Here, click on this assign agents. This step also blindly we have to remember and do this activity. Again, this is also one-time activity. So these both that bus 2250 entry and this one, these two are one-time activities. Okay. So once you open that assign agents, right? So what happens is here when you get a fresh MDG system, there will be some, you can see these entries. So there are by default, first time when you get a system, here all these will be defined as a background task only. By default, the entries will be there. All these entries will be there. But only wherever you see this general task, this one, this will be empty over here. This one will be empty when you get a fresh empty. Empty means this row will be there, but here you will see a blank value, just like here. You can see here, this is a blank value here. So like this, whatever you see here, the first row, the same way you will see here wherever this general task is there, this will be empty. And similarly, this will be empty. This will be, all these things will be empty initially. Till when? Till here. All the tasks which are starting with TS, till here, wherever you find now general task, these will be, it's supposed to be empty when you get a fresh MDG system. You need to make them as general tasks. You need to mark them as general tasks because this is a already using system. That's why initial someone already did that configuration. That's why you can see all these are with the general tasks. Okay. Now how to do that one? I just intentionally I kept it blank here initially. So for all these places, you need to just select something like this, a particular row. You can click on this attributes button. Now categorize it as general task. Just select this one and click on transfer.
So based on the requirement, this configuration needs to be done by functional only, right?
Yeah, this will be done by, usually this will be done by functional folks only. So once you select it as a general task, it will ask, okay, you can say something like this. See, now it categorizes a general task. Okay, likewise, you need to repeat this wherever you see it's a blank value. A task should start with the TS, and you need to categorize those as the general task till here. All the tasks which are starting with TS. Don't touch anything, these WS entries till here only. Okay, so that's
So
it.
we need to whatever empties are there under the task, we need to make it as
Yes.
general task.
Yes, till here, till TS. And
Okay.
ignore the down, all with starting with the WS till here. Okay. So these two activities you have to do first for the first time. Or if you are into a project and the system MDG is already set up, then all these things have been already done. Okay, clear? So remember here, this one, CA MDG application layer, click on this assign agents, and it will take you to that background in general. So system automatically categorizes all the tasks as background tasks, and it will intentionally leave it some task. So you need to categorize them as general task. Only those blank entries. That's it. Okay. So once you do this activity, I think, yeah. So these are the only two things that we need to do when you get a fresh MDG system. Okay. These two things. Fine.
There is no other number range setup for
Nothing.
our. Okay.
So
So
nothing.
these only two prerequisites we need to do for
Yes.
workflow configuration.
Yes. Okay. So now let's look at some of the other scenarios in the workflows. Like I wanted to send out an email. Okay. So or else I wanted to, let's say for example, in my workflow, once my CR got activated. So in general, one of the common scenario is, let's say for example, you have your MDG system, and this is your ECC layer. Here you have your Mara table. So this is, let's say for example, your Mara table. At the same time, as per the design, you also created some custom table, Z Mara. where you store some of the custom attributes. So once your CR get activated, right, what happens? This particular data, your staging table data gets it into record gets it into your Mara table. At the same time, some of the custom attributes or Z attributes you wanted to insert into this particular table. Okay, so or else you wanted to send some email in the workflow. Maybe once the CR is approved and activated, or activation got failed, you wanted to send out some email, right? So in that case, so if you look at all these cases, right, ABAP logic is required. ABAP logic you need to write. You need to insert some ABAP logic in your workflow, whether it is to trigger an email or to insert some data into your custom tables, okay, apart from the standard tables, okay, or else sometimes you wanted to create a follow-on CR. Follow-on CR. Follow-on CR means once my create CR is completed, which means your material is created. After that, you wanted to automatically create a change CR for the same material, and you wanted to send this, submit the workflow for the change process, so that the team can further edit the data, right? So this we call it as a follow-on CR things. So once your creation is successful, automatically you wanted to initiate a change process for the same material. Okay, so likewise, where there might be some cases where you need to write some ABAP logic in your workflow. But if you look at our three decision tables, so we are just filling the data. We are not writing any logic anywhere. So how I can incorporate my ABAP logic in that particular workflow or in that particular process from requester till the activation or workflow complete, how I can incorporate my ABAP piece of code. Okay, so that scenario we will see. This is again, this will be purely technical person, MDG technical person will do that one. What ABAP or a functional can do, I will tell you. After that, we need to implement some baddie, so that implementation and everything will be usually taken care by the technical folks. So I'll take the same one-step approval process. Okay, so that I'll take the decision table. Where is the decision table? Okay, so this is our workflow. So let's take the steps as well. It's very simple. So if you understand how we are extending it to two-step approval process, similar kind of approach we are following over here. Okay, so let's look at what is that. Now what happens? I'll take one use case here. Maybe I wanted to create a follow-on CR or email or a custom table. I wanted to insert the data. Once my CR got activated, so if there is a successful activation, I wanted to trigger an email or I wanted to create a follow-on CR. So that particular step, we need to define that activity. We need to define as a step, just like how we defined yesterday approver two step. So similarly, let's take example of email step. So for email, you need to define that step, email step. So I'll name that as a EM. EM is my email step. Okay, so this is my email step. Okay, so this is a new one, extra one. Okay, now what is our requirement? Once activation is successful, what we are doing here, we are calling the next step as 99, which is your workflow complete. But here, if you look at before workflow complete and after successful activation, so in between, I need to call my email step, right? So for that one, just insert one more row here. Okay, so what we are doing is similar to what we have done yesterday. So here, after activation successful, I'm calling my step as email step. So status trigger email. Okay. So once the email is completed, that means basically once email is completed, then you can actually call your workflow completion. So here I'll say it's conditionally as E. Okay. Now you can see the changes what I have done. After activation process successful, earlier we are calling this one. But now I'm calling my email step, and after email step, automatically it will call your the next one is the 99 step. That is nothing but your workflow complete. So is this clear? This adjustment?
For email triggering step at the activation success stage we are configuring, but in real scenario might be they will ask at the approver.
Anyway, see, I'm showing it you one for one place. But
Okay.
if at all your requirement is after approver approves, you wanted to trigger an email, the same thing you need to apply.
So 2 times we can apply, like at approval
In
stage.
at every step you can call this one. At every step also you can call. It all just depends on what is your previous and next. If your next step is email step, it will call email thing.
But before this, we need to configure under the change request steps, right? As usual, we can configure, or it might be different scenario.
I didn't understand.
So here the steps which are we are using here, those are we are maintaining under the CR steps, right?
Yeah,
Change
that
request.
you have to do it. That's what I'm saying. It's everything remains a method also. When we added approver 2 steps, so first we went to that we added that step under the change request.
So as usual, we can create the CR step under
Yes,
that, and
it's
we
same
can
thing.
use
It's the
this.
same thing. Yep, same thing.
No difference.
Again, I'm saying the same. This is the same thing I'm saying, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
whenever see, the reason I'm always putting over here the steps, whatever the steps that you are adding over here, that means by default, you have to add these steps into this particular define change request steps. This particular step, you need to do it at this level. You need to add all the steps. Okay, so that is for sure. After that, what I'm explaining is at the decision table level, what are the changes are there. So that's what I'm explaining over here. Okay, so once activation is completed, we are calling this email step, and after email step, we are actually here calling the your final check approved. In this case, I just took as example after activation successful. You can call the same thing after activation failure, after withdraw or after reject. Everywhere you can do this one.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, fine. So now this is we are just representing that triggering that email using this particular email step. So triggering this email, right? So basically it requires some ABAP logic. ABAP logic means it's not like someone will send it on the foreground. It's a background step. This is a background step. That means you need to go to this, for corresponding to this condition alias, you need to make an entry into your non-user representation table. Okay. Now what process pattern we will use here? Okay. So till here, you just remember this, we made entry into condition alias non-user representation table. Okay. So now let's go to the system. Okay. So first, something you can see here, define service names. Okay. So now create something called service name. Okay. Currently it's empty. Okay. Click on new service name. I'll say Z email. Okay. Anything Z email. I just mentioned here. And after that, trigger some description.
Hey, you know, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features? Bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
Email. I just created some service name, something called service name. So we'll be using this service name regularly now in all the baddies. Okay. So you are just saying this particular service name. We just created something called service name. Okay. Now what we will do is go to your rule-based workflow, configure workflows. Okay. So the change request, here enter the change request. Decision tables. Go to non-user agent decision table. Okay. So here what I'm doing is add a row. Here conditional alias is E. Put some user agent group. Any number. Okay. Now coming to process pattern. So here you need to choose process pattern called 02. Synchronous system method. What happens is when you use this particular process pattern 02, SAP provided one baddie. So that baddie definition is synchronous baddie. Okay, so let me show you here. So there is a baddie here under the same rule-based workflow. So there is a baddie calling of a system method for rule-based workflow. So that means here if you say 02, if you say here 02, okay, so that means system will call this particular baddie. So for you implement this baddie, inside this particular baddie, you write all the logic for email triggering or your table insertion, whatever, ABAP logic. It's a placeholder for writing any ABAP logic. Okay, so you write that ABAP logic inside this particular baddie. Now here, I'm saying here, call that particular baddie, 02. I'm using here process pattern 02 for my E condition alias. This E represents my email step. Okay, now, is this clear till now? So very simple. So
Yes.
there is a baddie SAP provided. How system knows this baddie has to call? So wherever you wanted to call this particular baddie logic, you need to specify here using by process pattern something called 02. This 02 synchronous system method. Even the baddie name also, it says that calling of a system method, right? So that's how you are linking this particular, using this process pattern 02, we are calling this particular baddie. Okay, now this is a multi-implementation baddie. Multi-implementation baddie means SAP provided this definition, this particular baddie. So this can be implemented by multiple people with different implementations. That means you have one baddie, the baddie definition in SAP, the baddie definition level, there is a you can specify, SAP specifies whether it's a single implementation or multi-implementation. Okay, when I say single implementation, only one implementation can be done for this particular baddie. Only one time only you can implement. Or when you say multi-implementation, that means this baddie you can write one implementation one. Inside this implementation, you can write logic for email trigger. You can also write implementation 2, and you can write logic for follow-on CR. And you can write another implementation. This is for maybe for finance team, for some other process. So likewise, this is a multi-implementation baddie. So now, which implementation? There are multiple implementations out there. Which implementation it has to call? In our case, I implemented this particular baddie with this implementation 1 to trigger that email logic. Now this has to call. I don't want other things to call. For that purpose, This we call it as a filter-based baddies. These are filter-based baddies. When I say filter-based baddie, at the baddie implementation level, you will call this implementation for if service name equal to, you define some service name. We created one service name. You remember first we created one service name. What is that service name? Z email. So we created the service name. So at the baddie implementation level, I'm specifying the service name is equal to this one. At the same time, in my workflow also, in the decision table also, I'll specify the service name as the same. See here, the corresponding next column after process pattern. So this is the service name we just created some time back. So when you do an FO, it will show all the available service names. So I'm choosing this service name. So this is basically to link the right baddie for your scenario. Okay. So first thing is from email step. So look at this one. From email step, okay, you are getting the conditional yes. For this particular conditional yes, here you are calling the process pattern 02. This 02 process pattern will trigger that system baddie. Okay. At the same time, we are also specifying here something called service name. Okay. So this particular service name, okay. So here I'm specifying the service name is equal to Z email. Okay. So then what happens when activation is successful? System will pick up next step as EM. Okay. It will take the conditional yes E and it will come over here. For this one, it will look at the process pattern 02. Okay. I need to call the system baddie. Now in the system baddie, there are multiple implementations are there. Which implementation I need to call? So it will look at this service name. Now with this service name, it will look at all the available implementations where service name is matching with Z email. Then it will call that implementation, and whatever the logic, ABAP logic inside that you have done, that logic will be executed. Now, from the functional point of view, what is your responsibility? You need to define this step and adjust your decision table like this. If required, you can also create the service name and you just fill this data. Now you give this service name to the ABAPer. ABAPer should be aware of that, okay, which baddie they need to implement. And when they're implementing the baddie, they will set the service name as equal to Z email. And then inside that implementation, they can write all the logic as per the business needs. It can be email trigger, or it can be some custom table, or it can insert data into custom table, or it can be create a follow-ons here. So multiple things you can do. It's an ABAP a hook where you can write whatever the logic that you want, programming logic you want, you can do there. Clear? Any confusion?
I'm clear on all the steps that you mentioned, but with the multi implementation of a particular body, when we choose the service name, do we still need to think about other things? Because we are clearly saying this is a service that it needs to do when when you're calling this body. But I'm not able to understand if there are multiple implementations. I mean, is there a way we can see multiple implementations and then choose the right implementation, or how do we?
I will show you that. I'll implement that baddie. So if you understand theoretically this part, this baddie, so you are clear with these decision tables. All the
steps are clear for
now. You are also clear with what is this service name and why I mentioned service name over here.
Yes.
Okay? So here I just mentioned here. It's a free text. It's a kind of identifier to tell you that or to link your baddie with this particular scenario. Okay, so that's it. Okay, till now there is no ABAP logic come into picture. Now the ABAPer activity will come into picture. So that is what I'm going to show you now. Okay, so what ABAPer will do? Okay, so now there is a system implementation. I need to implement that system called baddie. and I need to attach this service name as a filter. So for that one, the ABAPer will come over here. He will click on this. So this is the definition of that particular body. So you can see how I'm implementing this particular body. So implementation name, ZNH underscore email underscore demo. So I'm just giving some name over here. Store it in a package. Okay. So the body implementation name also we need to provide ZIMPL underscore email underscore demo. The class. So ZCL underscore email underscore demo is the class name. So system will create this class under this particular implementation. Inside this class, you can write the ABAP logic. Okay. Now, one of the good thing when I'm trying to implement this particular body, now I got this particular pop-up. Okay. So what is the purpose of this particular pop-up? What it says? One good thing in all MDG baddies is SAP provided one sample implementation because let's say I'm an ABAPer, but I don't know what type of logic I need to write inside this one. So I need usually what ABAPers will do, they will look for some reference or sample piece of code, right? So that sample piece of code SAP already provided over here. So this is the SAP provided one demo implementation for you. Okay. So now when you're implementing this particular body, system will ask you, do you wanted to, okay, you can see here two options are there. So when you say here, when you select this sample implementation and when you click on copy sample class, that means it will create an implementation with some sample piece of code. Okay, you can refer that logic. Or else I'm new, I'm already aware of what type of logic I need to write. So I don't need any demo or sample piece of code. I can just straight away I can go with a create a empty implementation. So that is the difference. Copy sample class means the code inside this particular implementation will get copied into my newly created class just for reference. I need to delete that piece of code. Just only for reference purpose, it will copy and you can look at the code and accordingly you can change as per your needs. Or else if you're already aware of that one, you can simply go ahead with a empty implementation. For now, I will use this copy sample class so that the code also will get copied. Now, in this implementation, demo implementation, what type of code SAP has included? They actually implemented a logic for follow-on CR. That means, what is follow-on CR? So, I wanted to create a material. So, I selected one change request, type create CR type, and based on that one, I entered all the data. I submitted the request. It went for the approval process, and finally, it got activated. So my CR got activated and material also created. Now activation is successful. Okay. Now at this point of time, I wanted to create a change CR. I wanted to change the material with some additional data information as per my business process. So usually what happens once your create CR is completed, we can ask the person to go search for the material from your search screen like this. So go to the search screen. Okay, and then search for the material that got created. Now you initiate a change process. So, okay, this is the search screen. You can search the material that you just created and you will find the material, select the material and click on change process, initiate a change process. This is one approach. But this will be like manually user has to go and search and initiate a change process. How I can automate this? Automate means as soon as the create is completed, it should automatically create a change CR type for the same material and it should trigger the workflow. That means the submission part should be completed. So that in the change workflow, if there is an approver or some person is there, it will go to that particular person. So that is what we call it as the follow-on CRs in general, right? So now in this particular sample implementation, SAP provided how to write a logic to create a follow-on CR. Okay, so I will show you that piece of code. So when you select this, click on copy sample class. Okay, first let's look at filter values. As I said here, at the implementation level also, we need to maintain that filter value. So that's where you can go to these filter values. Okay. So here you need to maintain the filter. So how to maintain that filter? See, create this one, click on create. You can see here service name. Double click this. Service name is equal to. You can also select the service name from your F4 Z email. So all the baddies in MDG are filter-based baddies. So here, this implementation will get called always if the filter value is matching. That means in my decision table also, I maintained the service name as Z email. And in the implementation level also, I maintained service name as Z email. So then at this stage, system knows that it will look at all the implementations where this filter is there. So if this filter, it will find this entry and it will actually call this corresponding implementation. So this is the method. Inside this particular method, you can write all the ABAP logic as anything based on your requirements. Wherever you see in the workflow, I need to write some, I need to handle some situation by writing some ABAP code. So this is the savior always. So it's a plugin. Anywhere you can insert. So if you look at this workflow, you wanted to call that a system call baddie in between at rejection scenario or at approval scenario or resubmit or withdraw. Wherever at any particular thing you wanted to write some ABAP logic, that ABAP logic you can control by using some additional step. And using that additional step, you can call the process pattern. You can configure something like this. It's not necessary always towards the end. Anywhere you can write that ABAP logic. Okay. Now here, SAP provided one sample piece of code to see here, create a follow-on change request with reference to the existing. Okay. So here what they are doing, there is a logic, like, I mean, if you go through this logic, you will understand this one. Now it's very simple. They're just passing your change request number so that this particular, where is that? Yeah, here. This particular method, create follow on C request. So if you call this method with your current change request number, this is the CR number of your create CR number. If you pass this one, it will automatically launch a change request process, change CR. It will automatically create a change CR. So it's a very simple piece of code. Okay, so here they have written a logic how to call a follow on CR. But in the same way, you can also write the logic for your triggering out an emails. I have a documented. I will share that. I'll show you the document as well. So there is a piece of code, sample reference piece of code is there, how you can trigger an email. Okay, but this is how you can link your ABAP piece of code in your entire workflow wherever you want. Is this clear? Any questions?
So I'm kind of clear from the ABAP code connected to the one level above, where there is a system method where
Yes.
that baddie will call this particular service, which the service will then call this particular code,
Yes.
which is connected to the service. Is fine. But my first question is, if you go down there, you've written whether the baddie is single implementation or multi-implementation. So implementation 1 is about sending an email, right? So
Yes.
the first one is about sending an email.
Yeah.
So when this is clearly implementing sending email only, then why do we need service separately? That's my question. So if you know the implementation 1 is going for email only, can we not connect directly this one rather than creating a service connecting to that code and then coming to
you are
this
actually on spot, I'll tell you. So now, if you look at this particular baddies, all these baddies, let me this search for MDG. So what you are thinking is, okay, I will have one implementation and I'll write the logic. For I have only one scenario, email triggering. But now what happens is this particular bad is not only for your scenarios. So this baddies will get in the here inside this particular one. You can find the implementations for MM, for BP, in MM also for different CR types, different implementations will be there. Okay, so it's a multi-implementation. So MM people also will implement this baddie. BP people also will implement this baddie. Finance team also will implement this baddie. Now that means there are multiple implementations will be there. Okay. Now, how do I ensure if I don't put a filter, system will try to call all the implementations. Which
filter to choose the right method. Is that what you are?
Right implementation. Filter to choose the right implementation.
Okay.
So now I created one implementation. Now I can create another implementation also. It will be for different purpose.
I understand. Okay. So the baddie may be used by many people, and then we want to call our own implementation.
Yes.
Then you put the filter and then choose the right implementation. So to tag that our right implementation, we created a service. That service name is connected to the steps that we have already created.
Exactly.
So then we are calling it service name. Service name calls that within the implementation with the right method. It's calling that right method.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. See, here you create a service name. This is the place.
Yeah.
There is nothing. It's a simple. You need to add a new row and add define one name for your service. It can be like a follow. In fact, actually, emails also can be multiple teams will send. You can put @email.
That's what I was thinking. So email as a function, you need to send an email. I've written a logic to send that email as a function or some method. All I need is to provide the email address. That's it. Then I call that function from anywhere.
But let's say BP team has different requirement. In the email, they wanted to send some different details.
Okay.
And for MM team, they wanted to send different details, right?
Okay.
So the email body, subject, the content you put in the email, so that might be differ from team to team. So either you can have one generic service name and a generic implementation which can be used across all the teams, which is very rare. Because based on my experience, MM team will have their own stuff for the emails and
email content will vary definitely.
Exactly. So that's why it's better to create each team their own specific. So that's why I'm saying ZMM_email or ZBP_email, something like you can create so that you can very specific to what this service name is meant for. Okay. So define the service name over here. And when you implement this particular baddie over here, add that as a filter condition and then come to your non-user agentation table and add that service name here as well.
Right. Okay. No, understood. It's just connected to all the way to the end method. So that's fine.
Yes.
Once we did all this, how come we know where we can configure to which email address?
That is the code that will be there inside the code. Okay. So let me, I will share anyway these documents. So already prepared into multiple folders. So for workflows, in the workflow. So there is a document which talks about triggering an email, sending an email notification during governance process. So here they explain step by step. Whatever we discussed now, everything will be explained over here. Let me look at
these documents are already shared with us.
Not yet. I will share.
Okay.
Once I'll explain and then I will share these documents.
Okay.
Fine, I'll share it this week. Okay, so there is one more. Yeah, this one. Okay, so here they mentioned the steps. Email using the baddie system called baddie. Okay, so Now, what they are doing here, first, they are creating the service name Z notify requester. This is the service name they created. And in the body implementation also, they maintained that service name as the notify requester as a filter. Okay. Now in the body system call body. So this is the logic, example coding, how to trigger an email, right? So here you have this logic, you will get it anywhere, like I mean in Google also, okay? So email ID, everything will be mentioned over here. Email ID. So what should be the subject? So this what is the subject and email body here, and then email.
Is there a kind of template, kind of email template, which is attached to the service? And
No,
then,
no.
I mean, how will the end user who has no knowledge of code and all, they will just have to, when the
No,
activation succeeds, they will put the email ID and configure it, or that should go somewhere.
actually here what they are doing is, if this logic, they are looking at whoever is the requester, right? So they are reading that requester from the 120C table. Okay.
Mhm.
So they're reading that requester, and after that, they're getting the user details. You will be having in your user record, right? So they pass the user ID, they get the email ID. So where this email ID will be there, let me show you here. If I go to my user ID, so if I go to my user ID in SU01D, you go to the particular, enter your user ID. Here there is an email. Somewhere you will have email. Where is this? This is a login.
Say in the communication. Just scroll down. No. In the same address itself.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Somewhere it will be the email ID. Will
Yeah,
be
do you see
email.
this?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we are not actually, see, different people will follow different approach. If there is a DL, right, some DL, they will hard
Distribution
code the
list.
DL. In the distribution list,
Yeah.
there will be group of people maintained. Or else he wanted to send the email ID to a requester. So requester can be any person. So we cannot note down his email ID every time. So that's why I will find the
That's fine.
requester from the 120C table. From there, I call this particular baddie. So you can see there is a BAPI is there, user get detail, and you pass that one, and you can get the email ID. And this email ID, I will pass it for my in the to that particular email. While triggering the email, I
Right.
will attach this one. So it has all the logic of, okay, how to trigger that email. Okay. So in general, usually we also send the emails using ABAP piece of code, right? General without MDG also, if you create a sales order or purchase order, we trigger some emails. So it's the same
Yeah.
kind of logic we follow here.
Yeah. I think what I was thinking, when the activation is successful, email may go to all the people who are involved, right from the requester, approver 1, 2, 3. Whoever needs to know whatever they approved, whatever they did, everything is successful. So that may go through this. But I think
Yes.
the method they have written is sending an email back to the requester.
Yeah.
Maybe there will be another method that will send to everybody else or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that needs amendment or something.
Yeah, or else you can write some custom. See, you'll have some custom SAP table. In that table, you'll mention, okay, these are the CR types. For these CR types, these are the email IDs which I need to. So that ultimately you need to determine to whom you need to send the mail. So that determination can happen via user IDs, or it can be from custom table. That is depends on our business, how we design.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as a functional guys, we only need to configure under the workflow ration tables,
Yes,
and
yes.
we have to create service name.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, the body implementation should be taken care by the MDG technical or other person. Okay, so I'll share these documents. So once we complete all other scenarios, I will share over here whatever we are going to discuss. Everything is there in the. We have different documents for different scenarios. Okay, So is this clear to all how, let's say it's not only email point of view, wherever here the intention is, you need to understand at the Uber level, wherever you need to insert some ABAP piece of code that can be that can be possible using this particular process pattern Z2. So now how you can make use of this process pattern 02 to call your logic. That's where I took one use case where after activation successful, we are calling this email step, and from corresponding to that email step, we are using this condition alias, we're calling this particular, linking this particular baddie, and via service name, you are finding the right implementation.
For timeline, like for if there may be 2 approvers, so at each approval stage we need to set some timeline to the approver. Then how come you can configure for that?
So for that one, you need to write some code inside in the listeners. In the work, you should have knowledge on your ABAP workflows. So basically, your requirement is if the CR is not yet approved by this particular person and you wanted to send some notification kind of thing. So maybe in that case, we need to enhance your 86 workflow. Okay, so enhance the 86 workflow and have some time period. There will be some listeners. If the listener the time exceeds more than 24 hours, whatever the defined timeline, then you need to call this particular.
Technical point of view, I can understand we need to do some logic, but functional side, what are the?
There is no functional thing over there. It's a pure technical stuff.
We no need to add any additional column in
No,
single.
nothing.
So basically, there is no SLA attached to any of this workflow
in workflows.
functions.
Straightforward, there is no SLA attached. Okay, maybe if that SLA is not met after, if the SLA is exceeding, you need to do some action. That kind of thing is not possible over here in the via decision table or anything. But that is possible. That is actually possible. But you need to do some changes at the workflow level.
Yeah. I mean, there are some, I've seen some workflows where, if it's a month-end process starting, if it's a March end, then March 10th, something will start, workflow will automatically start, and then it will send out the work items to the people who need to collect data, run the report, or something like that. So the system generated workflows where it can actually track the time as well. Is there anything like that in this one?
That actually, I had never actually come across that kind of requirement in MDG. But actually, what we have seen in MDG is, let's say, for example, I submitted a CR, right? It went to the approver. Now, if the approver may take our action, or probably assume that if the approver is not taking any action, right? Maybe after 1 week or 10 days also. So then, as per the business process, we can define some process, something like that. Hey, if it is not approved within 10 days, okay. So then, what I wanted to reject that CR automatically. The CR should get rejected. Okay. So that kind of scenarios we have seen here and there, where we did some changes at the workflow level. Technically, we handled that requirement. So how we handled that, if at all you are interested, I'll take that one as well. What we have done in that scenario, that I'll explain that.
Okay, but in general, if approver has got an item to approve in his list of things to do, whatever the dashboard or something, wherever he sees the workflows, that will have some when it was created and how long it's been pending with him. All those things will be visible to them.
Reports are there, where usually every day the operations team or some supervisor or whoever, so they will generate the report and you can see whether it met SLA or does not met SLA and all those stuff. And that is a manual activity. But to set some auto notifications automatically, hey, this is pending with you for more than 10 days, or something like kind of a notification or probably some escalation next level. So such kind of thing is not handled over here, but that is also possible. There are some alternate approaches are there. So where we handle that kind of scenario. I'll touch base that in the how we
I think generally, MDG workflows are not SLA based, not time based. It's all about the action based rather than the time based.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
So, any questions from anyone?
Apart from that email notification and the Z-table insertion, right?
Yeah.
What are the other possible scenario where we can implement, the baddie logic
Where we can
in real project, right? So email notification is the major one, and the Z-table insertion is also the major one, right?
Yes. Follow-ons here also we regularly do.
Follow-ons here, yeah, three.
These three are most commonly used one. Apart from this, if at all any other things that if I think of, I'll give you one scenario. Okay. So let's say, for example, requester, approver, activation, and workflow completer. So these are 99 steps. Okay. Now the requirement is requester submitted the request to approver. Okay. Now at approver, once they submit this data, right? So while it is going to the approver stage, let's say for example, while it is going to that approver, in between, there is some certain data where requester does not aware of the data, but you need to get this particular data from some external source. This is outside of probably some external source. You can take, let's say for example, DNB, Duns and Bradstreet. There is some external where I'm creating a customer. When I'm creating a customer, as soon as I submit the customer data, when it going to the approver, in between, for every customer based on the address data, we collect some DUNS numbers. If you work with the US, so DUNS probably you might have come across this DUNS number.
Yes.
Yeah, DUNS, right? So basically, based on your address data, system will pick up this DUNS is an external server maintained by some DNB team. So once you pass your address data, so this DNB system server will return back the matching DUNS number for your address for this particular customer. So this requester may or may not know that what is the DUNS number, so that he cannot enter. But once he entered the data, we wanted to automate the process to get the data from external source and update my DUNS ID or something at my master data level before it is going to approver step. That means in between, I will have some dummy step, the DUNS step. I'll call it as a DUNS step. Okay, where I will link my system call baddie. From the system call baddie, I can make a call to this DUNS one, right? It's a paid service. So once your customer pays that amount, so they will be providing credentials and they will provide the API details. So you in your system call baddie, you make a call to this particular DUNS. You will call their API. That will return the DUNS number. That number you can update in your master data record, and then that record will be submitted for the approval.
Okay.
This is after submitting the requester the request and before
yes. So in between we will add this DUNS step, just like how I added email step. I add because see, in this case I need to make a call to that API. That call can be happen via programmatically only. So wherever something required programmatically, then you can actually make use of this system call baddie.
There is no functional involvement for this.
There is no functional involvement. See, again, the same thing. You need to configure the steps. Right? Implementing that baddie will be from the MDG technical.
Same like how we can configure
Yes,
for the email
yes,
triggering.
exactly.
And also for the custom tables, follow up once here. For those also we need to set up some, maintain some workflow steps or not required.
Everything, that's what I said, right? So I'm just giving multiple examples. So
Okay.
you can the implementation can be for any purpose. So here the intention is not for email, not for follow on all this scenario by scenario. Wherever you need to write some ABAP logic, so that ABAP logic you can define with some step, and that step you configure in this particular decision table, and then give that inform your ABAPer. The developer should take care of writing that logic by implementing that system called BADI.
Here one is email and second one is follow up on here. Third one G custom attributes, or how, what is that?
That is a table update, some Z table updates.
Okay. So follow up on CR in the sense once create the material request, completed the approval process and closed that workflow, automatically it will trigger the change request, right? So
Yeah.
it is continuously it will happen, or one time only it will happen after completion of creation request.
Continuously means, what do you mean by continuous?
Like so after completion of the creation workflow step, and then it will trigger the change request and automatically. So once that change request get completed, again it will uh, automatically raise the change request, or only it's a one time process?
No, see, it's a very simple thing. Okay, you created a MAT01 as one CR type configured workflow for 86 workflow for this one. Okay, in this decision table, towards end of the activation process, you are calling MAT02 for change process, right? Here, this MAT02 will have its own workflow, and you are not writing anything. Where you are adding a follow-on CR, here you are creating the follow-on CR. Because of this follow-ons here, it is creating this here. After completion of this one, we are not writing any logic, right? We are writing this follow-on CR logic in this CR type workflow, not in this one. So once this is completed, then that's it. It will if you write some other logic inside this MAT02 CR type here, that will get executed. Yep. Any questions from anyone? So is this clear to everyone? What is the significance of system called BADI? Fine.
Are there any,
Yeah.
sorry, I know I'm clear on this step. The other bodies, is there anything
Yeah.
that we should be aware of?
Yes. There are 3 more baddies are there. So I just introduced only one baddie, system call.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, wherever you need to write ABAP logic, all programmatical related stuff can be handled using this system call baddie. This is one thing. Now, let's take another use case. What is that? I'll just show you here. Okay, here. Okay, so the requirement here is now look at your user agent decision table. User agent decision table. User agent decision table. This is okay. Let me write it clearly. User agent DT. DT means decision table. Okay. So if we look at this particular decision table, okay. So what we are doing, the agents are identified by this particular role. Okay. So which is generic one. So whoever is having this particular role, they will get determined. They will identify as the agents. The work item will be assigned to them. This is one way. And most of the time we use this one only. Roles only. 99% we go by with roles only. But sometimes very rare scenario. Let's say, for example, I wanted to determine the agents from my some Z table or some other custom process. I don't want it to. This is a static. All the time requester submits, it go to the approver. All the time for the approver, this is the role. It's a static role. But I wanted to change this one dynamically. Probably here I wanted to determine the agents from some custom process. I don't wanted to hard code here, or I don't wanted to look at the agents from this particular decision table. Maybe I have my own custom table or custom logic or some custom process. I wanted to run through that logic and find the agents who will be the approvers for this particular scenario. So in that case, we cannot write any logic over here, because you need to just maintain only here. And your system call body, you cannot use that one in this case. Okay. So now you got the problem statement, right? What I'm trying to say. No, there's no confusion. Actually, the requirement is I don't wanted to find the agents. Now I say here the role name is manager. Let's say procurement manager is the role name. That means if there are some under this procurement manager role, you have user 1, user 2, user 3. Okay. So that means when the requester submits it, go to approver. At approver level, system will identify this role, and the work item will be assigned to these 3 agents. Okay. Now this is a static. All the time all the users under this particular role will be identified as the agents or approvers. But I don't want it to determine from here. I have my Z table, some Z table. Assume that in this Z table, I have a role called manager. Okay, manager. And from this particular, whoever is the agents are there with this manager. Okay, let's say for example, A1, A2, A3. These are the 3 different users. I wanted to determine the agents from this table instead of this particular role. I cannot insert the table over here. Clear? Okay, so that means you need to have some provision where you will read this table. From this particular table, read all these agents and assign these agents as a approvers instead of looking into this particular role. Okay, clear? Okay, fine. So now for this one, same approach, same steps, but it will be a different body. You can see there is a body called dynamic selection of agents in rule-based body. So dynamically you wanted to find, that means your agent has to be determined based on certain logic, some ABAP logic, by some other means, not from your agent decision table, right? In this case, this is the body you need to implement. Okay, as usual, you need to create one service name over here. Z dynamic underscore agent underscore determination. I'm just giving this name. Okay, description dynamic agent determination. Okay, I'm just saving. Okay, I saved this one. Now let's go to this particular body, dynamic agent selection. Implement this body just like how we implemented earlier. The ENH underscore dynamic agent. So if you understand that system thing, I mean, how we are linking these baddies with our user and decision tables, all other 3 scenarios also follow the same approach. So ZIMPL underscore again, as usual, there is a sample implementation as well for you how to write the logic. how to dynamically find that agents. So I'm copying this sample class so that we can look at how they have done. Okay, so go to the filters first. Maintain the filter. What filter I should select here? The name, service name.
Dynamic implementation.
This one, yes.
Determination.
Yes, okay. So with this one, we are linking, we actually added a filter to our baddie. Okay, we'll go to that logic afterwards. Now, so the next part is just like how we link the system call baddie here. In case of dynamic selection, that service name you need to link over here. There is a field. Let me look at the name in your single validation table. Single validation table. Scroll right. Yeah, you can see there is a dynamic agent selection service name. So here, dynamic agent selection service name. Okay, so this is just to link that a particular baddie. Okay, so now what happens? Once requester submitted this request, the next step is 90. In normal scenario, it will take this conditionally as 1 and it will look in the user agentation table, the agents. This is true if this is blank. But if you put some value over here, that means what is our this one? So if you put some value over here, okay, then what happens? Once requester submits at 90 step, system doesn't look into your condition user agentation table because there is something is maintained. So it will look up that particular baddie, which I call the dynamic implementation baddie, where this service name is matching. So that baddie should return. Now here, if it goes to the user agentation table, it will return the agents from this decision table. But now since we are not finding the agents from this decision table, so you are linking the baddie, so the baddie should return the agents now. That means it is your responsibility to write the logic inside that particular baddie, who are the agents at that step.
Does it mean that we don't need to define this number 1 in the user agent table data?
That's it. You don't need to write that entry, you don't need to maintain as well. That's why I struck out that row.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that means now, earlier till now, we know only using this user agentation table only we can find the agents. But you also have another way where you can also determine. You no need to make that entry corresponding to 1 because you already maintained this one. System will only look at that particular baddie. If there is no baddie implementation or if the baddie is not returned the right empty values, if it not returned any agent, workflow will get into an error state. So you need to write a logic in such a way that it will identify some agent.
But does it also mean we need to, because it's all happening in the background, we have to include some row in the non-user agent DT?
Nothing. So see, you no need to write anything. You need to mention here only. So for system baddie only, this is the place where you need to link the service name. For dynamic agent baddie, this is the place. So for every baddie, it will change the service name, how you are linking, that will get changed.
Okay.
Okay. So that means now I need to go over here, edit. Like this. Okay. Like this. So it doesn't go to your user agentation table. It will take this service name. From this particular service name, system will look at, okay, so there is a implementation with this same filter name. Then it will go to your class. There is a method over here, get dynamic agents. And inside that, you need to write the logic. So I'll explain how the logic can be written. But if you understand that end-to-end connectivity, right from your workload till that particular body, then we can get into this logic. So if you have something like this, system will call body, that is dynamic agent determination body. Body. Okay, so that body is this one.
In fact, we are not calling directly the body. We are calling the service name. That service name is actually.
So framework will call that particular body.
Yeah.
So here, this particular body. So we discussed earlier this one. Now we are discussing about this body. Okay. So clear to everyone. Sendil, Dinesh, Ramraj, you all clear, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So for this one as well, I have a document. Okay, so now first let's go look at that logic, what they are doing here. Ultimately, this not system body, this is already done. I'll come out of this one. Okay, so this dynamic agents. Ultimately, if you look at the signature, there is this one, CT user agent group. So in this particular table, you need to fill the data, the users. So how they are filling, you can see here inside this. Okay, if you look at this, CT user agent group, where you need to fill the data. So they're populating this work, adding this work area. In this work area, you have same thing, user type. User type is, it's a US means user. And what they are doing here, they have some custom tables, the same which I explained. If you look at this one, this is the custom table, G material group. Here the requirement is for different material groups, they have different agents. If the material group is, let's say, XYZ, there should be one user approver. If material group is something else, there should be another one. So that kind of thing I cannot, requirement I cannot handle in my decision table. Here I don't know what is the material group that user selected on the UI. I don't have that information. Okay, but what is the requirement? Hey, if this material group is this one, this is the agent. Material group is this one, this is the agent. So likewise, based on the material group, you are determining the agents. So that you don't have that provision over here. That's why SAP provided this. Maybe you can maintain all your material groups and the agents over here. They are finding that, they are first reading that they are passing the CR number. And from the CR number, they are getting the material MARA data. From the MARA data, they are querying your Z table with the right material group, and you got the agent, and they're just simply filling that one over here. US means user type is US, or you can have role, all that user types, whatever we saw user types over here, agent types, you have all that one. So if you wanted to populate multiple users, you can fill this CT with different agents. It's a very simple logic. Clear?
Where's the condition there? I mean, which type? If this is this type, then choose this user. or this manager? The condition.
So here they are getting this one right from the, you can see.
Okay.
So this
All
is
right. Okay.
table.
They're
So in the
using
sample piece of code, why they commented this particular table? Because this table may not exist in your in your system.
correct.
That's why they commented this. But you can look at the logic. So they are reading the agents based on the material group from this custom table.
Okay. And then if it's right one, then choose the right manager and then
Yeah.
send that back to the workflow.
Yes. They are querying this table with a material group, MATKL. And from where I'm getting this MATKL? From my change request.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. So now you need to just fill this agents users into this table. That is enough.
And if there are any errors from the body, then the workflow will get stuck.
Yeah,
It will not
it will
go
stuck,
further.
and the error you see is in the, if you go to the in the top in the CR workflow log, there you will find error in agent determination.
Okay.
When I tested first time, we got some error. If you remember,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In the logs, it
Yeah.
showed that agent determination error. That's where I
Yeah.
came to know that the user ID is wrong. So I corrected the
Yeah.
user ID.
Yeah.
Okay, so this all dynamic agents kind of scenarios can be handled using this baddie. So now if you look at overall, right? So we talked about ABAP log, wherever you need to write some ABAP, insert some ABAP piece of code for follow-on CS, for reading the data from external sources, or else insert the data into custom table or email triggering, all that sort of thing. You can make use of this baddie, system called baddie. Only specifically if at all you wanted to dynamically find the agents, only you need to use this baddie. This baddie cannot be used for some other email triggering kind of thing. Because the output of this particular baddie should be user agents. If you write any ABAP logic or something such a way, email triggering those things, this baddie won't work. So this is exclusively for agent determination. So that's why SAP provided different baddies for exclusively for different purposes. Okay.